It was the night of August 14, 1984 when Michael and Laura, both in their mid-20s, pulled into a quiet roadside diner along Highway 287 in Texas. The place was nearly empty, lit by buzzing neon lights that flickered against the glass windows. The couple looked tired, as if they had been driving for hours. Yet something about their hurried movements suggested more than just exhaustion. Witnesses later recalled how Laura kept glancing toward the entrance, while Michael leaned forward in his seat, speaking in hushed tones as if he didn't want anyone overhearing. The waitress who served them remembered them ordering just 2 cups of coffee and a slice of pie to share. She found it odd. Most travelers stopped in for a full meal after a long drive. What unsettled her even more was the way Michael constantly checked his watch, as if they were running out of time. The air around them seemed heavy, tense, and though they sat close together, it was clear something, or someone, was troubling them deeply. Other customers inside the diner noticed it too. A truck driver, sitting at the counter, said Laura's hands trembled as she lifted her fork. He swore he saw her eyes dart toward the window every few minutes, scanning the parking lot, as though expecting a car to pull in at any second. Some even claimed they saw a dark sedan parked across the road, headlights off, engine silent, just waiting. But by the time police investigated, no such car could be found. When the couple finally stood to leave, it was just after midnight. Their half-finished pie and half-empty coffee mugs were left behind, along with Laura's purse, strangely abandoned on the table. She never left without it, her friends would later insist. Yet the purse remained untouched, as if she had been pulled away suddenly, too quickly to notice. Outside, their car was still parked in its space, keys inside, doors unlocked. There were no signs of a struggle, no broken glass, no footprints leading into the night. From that moment forward, Michael and Laura were gone. No one saw them leave the diner. No one saw them on the road. They had simply vanished into thin air. What began as a seemingly ordinary late-night stop at a small-town diner would soon spiral into one of Texas's most unsettling mysteries. The disappearance of Michael and Laura shook the small Texas town to its core. In a place where everyone knew each other, where late-night gossip spread faster than the morning paper, the couple's vanishing became the only topic people could talk about. For weeks, neighbors locked their doors earlier than usual, parents refused to let their children wander after dark, and the once bustling diner turned into a symbol of fear. Rumors spread like wildfire, each story darker than the last. Search parties were organized almost immediately. Deputies, volunteers, and even hunters with bloodhounds combed through the woods and fields surrounding the highway. The local sheriff insisted the couple couldn't have gone far, but every search ended the same way. Empty fields, endless stretches of road, and silence. Not a single piece of clothing. Not a single trail of footprints. Not even a broken branch suggested where Michael and Laura might have gone. It was as though the earth had swallowed them whole. The people of the town began to whisper about strange sightings near the diner in the days before the disappearance. Some spoke of strange lights glowing in the tree line at night, moving in ways no vehicle or flashlight could. Others claimed they had seen a tall shadowy figure pacing near the parking lot, always lingering but never stepping into the diner itself. To some, these stories sounded like paranoia, but to others, it felt like confirmation. Something unnatural had touched their quiet town. Police interviews with the diner's employees revealed more unsettling details. The cook admitted he had seen a man sitting in the corner booth a few nights earlier, staring at Michael and Laura as they walked in. When asked to describe him, his answers grew vague. He couldn't remember the man's face, only that he was pale and oddly still, like a statue that didn't belong. Strangely, none of the other staff remembered seeing such a person that night. The question remained, was this a real suspect, or just a trick of memory fueled by fear? As the weeks dragged on, the town grew restless. Flyers with Michael and Laura's faces were plastered on telephone poles, in grocery stores, and even pinned on the front door of the diner itself. But no one came forward with answers. Instead, new rumors spread, of a drifter who had been passing through, of a secret argument overheard in the couple's booth, of voices echoing in the fields, long after the search teams had gone home. And with each passing day, the mystery grew heavier, as if the very town itself was haunted by something it couldn't explain. As the investigation dragged on, suspicion began to shift toward the man who had been at the center of the diner for years, the owner, Charles Henley. Charles was in his late 50s at the time, a gaunt man with sunken eyes and a voice so soft it almost sounded like a whisper. Locals described him as polite but distant, someone who never joined in town events, never smiled much, and never spoke about his past. To some, he was just a quiet businessman. To others, there was something about him that felt off. Detectives quickly learned that Charles kept the diner open at odd hours, sometimes until 3 or 4 in the morning, long after other businesses had closed. When asked why, he simply said, "Travelers get hungry at night." Yet many residents found it strange how few customers actually came in during those late hours. The diner often sat empty, lights buzzing, with Charles alone behind the counter, watching, waiting, as though expecting someone who never arrived. Employees who had once worked for him began to recall unsettling details. One former waitress remembered that Charles never allowed anyone near the basement storage room. If boxes needed to be taken down, he would insist on carrying them himself, locking the door behind him every time. Another swore she once heard muffled noises coming from below the diner in the dead of night. But when she asked about it, Charles stared at her coldly and told her never to bring it up again. Over time, many staff members quit, claiming they felt uneasy working under him. Investigators also learned that Charles had no family in town, no close friends, and no one who could clearly account for his activities on the night Michael and Laura disappeared. When questioned, he maintained that he had left early that evening, locking up and going straight home. But the stories conflicted. One customer swore they had seen him cleaning the counter, just after midnight, minutes before the couple vanished. Another said they saw his truck parked outside long after closing. Yet, without hard evidence, the sheriff's department could do little more than speculate. The diner's reputation quickly soared. What had once been a welcoming stop for late-night travelers became a place people avoided. Parents warned their children not to go near it, and rumors began to swirl that Charles had something dark hidden in his basement. But with no proof, the whispers remained just that, whispers. The years passed, the case grew colder, and eventually the diner itself was shut down, boarded up and left to rot. Yet for many in town, the shadow of Charles Henley never really disappeared. By 2024, 4 decades had passed since Michael and Laura's disappearance, and the old diner had been swallowed by time. Its neon sign was shattered, the parking lot cracked with weeds, and the once bright booths covered in dust. When the FBI reopened the cold case, the building became their first stop. At first glance, it was nothing more than a ruin, a forgotten shell of a past tragedy. But as the agents moved deeper inside, they noticed things that didn't quite fit. Boards nailed unevenly across the floor, and a faint draft seeping through the cracks as if the building itself was breathing. When the agents pried open the rotting floorboards, they uncovered a trapdoor, its metal hinges rusted but still intact. Few in town had even known the diner had a basement, and the discovery sent chills through the investigators. With flashlights in hand, they descended into the darkness below, where the air was thick with dampness and the smell of old rust. What they found did not look like a simple storage space. It looked like someone had lived down there. The basement was cluttered with remnants of a hidden life. Broken chairs, dusty crates, and old canned goods stacked neatly against the wall. There were blankets spread out on the floor, long decayed, and strange symbols scratched into the concrete with something sharp. One agent described the space as part shelter, part shrine, though no one could say exactly what it was meant for. It was as though whoever stayed there had been preparing for something, or hiding from it. Then came the discovery that made their blood run cold. Tucked away in the farthest corner of the basement, stood a massive industrial refrigerator, sealed shut with heavy latches. Its presence raised more questions than answers. Why would a small town diner need such an enormous unit hidden underground? And why had it been locked so tightly, untouched for decades? The sight of it alone filled the investigators with dread, as though they were about to open something that was never meant to be disturbed. The agents exchanged uneasy glances before forcing the latches open. The sound echoed through the basement like a thunderclap, breaking the suffocating silence. A rush of cold air poured out, stale and heavy, carrying with it a faint metallic scent. Their flashlights cut through the darkness inside, revealing something carefully placed within. In that moment, every theory, every whisper from the past, seemed to tighten around them like a noose. Whatever had happened to Michael and Laura, the answer was now only inches away. The refrigerator groaned as the agents pulled its heavy door open, hinges shrieking from decades of rust. Inside, the beam of their flashlights revealed a sight that froze them in place. Neatly folded on the middle shelf was a man's jacket and a woman's dress, pressed together as though someone had carefully placed them there like prized possessions. The clothes had not decayed into rags as one might expect. Instead, they were eerily preserved by the sealed cold, fabric stiff with time, yet hauntingly recognizable. One agent whispered the names, Michael and Laura, as if saying them out loud made the discovery more real. The jacket's tag still bore Michael's initials, stitched in by his mother years before, while Laura's dress, a light blue one she was last seen wearing, looked like it had been chosen with deliberate care. These weren't just random garments, they were relics, trophies, reminders of two lives that had vanished into the night. But the refrigerator was otherwise empty, no bones, no blood, no trace of the couple's bodies. Only the clothes, folded with unnatural precision. What disturbed the investigators most was not only the absence of remains, but the almost ritualistic way the clothing had been preserved. It was as if whoever placed them there wanted them to last forever, untouched by time. Some agents theorized it was a killer's twisted keepsake, while others wondered if the clothes were meant as some sort of message, left behind intentionally, waiting to be discovered. The unanswered question lingered: why hide the clothes so carefully, yet leave no sign of the victims themselves? The smell inside the refrigerator carried a strange metallic tang that clung to the agents' hands and clothes, even after they stepped back. One swore they caught the faintest trace of perfume, Laura's perfume, though others dismissed it as imagination. Still, the atmosphere was suffocating, as though the basement had been waiting 40 years for someone to open that door and disturb what lay inside. The refrigerator wasn't just an appliance anymore, it was a silent witness, holding on to secrets no one wanted to hear. The agents cataloged the evidence with shaking hands, sealing the clothes in bags to preserve them for analysis. But as they stood in that basement, staring at the now empty refrigerator, none of them could shake the feeling that something, or someone, was missing. The clothes told only part of the story, a fragment of a larger truth, hidden in the shadows of the diner. And with every second that passed, the silence of the basement seemed to press down harder, as though daring them to dig deeper into the darkness. As the FBI analyzed the discovery, they began piecing together old files from across Texas, searching for any connection. What they found was disturbing. Michael and Laura were not the only couple to vanish under mysterious circumstances. Records revealed that in 1977, a young pair disappeared after stopping at a roadside diner 2 towns over. In 1981, another couple vanished under strikingly similar conditions, again near a late-night diner, again leaving behind personal belongings, as if they had been pulled away in an instant. Each case had gone cold, each buried under dust until now. What unsettled investigators most was the pattern of objects left behind. In 1977, the missing woman's shoes were found neatly placed beneath her car seat, while the man's watch appeared weeks later, discovered inside an abandoned barn. In 1981, a set of wedding rings was found wrapped in cloth and tucked inside a bus station locker hundreds of miles away. And now, in 1984, Michael's jacket and Laura's dress were folded carefully inside a refrigerator. None of the victims were ever found. Only fragments, pieces, and possessions left behind in a way that felt intentional. The cases carried the same eerie rhythm: late-night diners, couples vanishing without trace, and belongings preserved like trophies. Investigators began to suspect they weren't dealing with isolated incidents, but with a serial predator who had operated across Texas for years, possibly decades. If Charles Henley, the diner owner, was involved, then how far did his reach extend? Could he have been traveling between diners, setting up shop wherever he pleased, preying on young couples as if following some ritual? But questions began to multiply faster than answers. Why couples? Why diners? Why only specific items preserved with such care? It was as if the missing weren't just victims. They were chosen, selected for reasons no one could understand. Some FBI agents wondered if the trophies were a way to relive the crime, while others whispered that the precision of the preservation felt less like madness and more like ceremony. The clothes, the rings, the shoes, they weren't just evidence, they were artifacts. The deeper the FBI dug, the more the lines between fact and folklore blurred. Locals from towns tied to the disappearances spoke of the same rumors, of a pale man seen lingering in the shadows, of strange lights near the highways, of whispers that the missing had not simply been killed, but taken. Whether those stories held truth, or were born of fear, didn't matter. What mattered was the undeniable thread. Couples across Texas had vanished in the same chilling fashion, leaving only fragments of themselves behind. And now, 40 years later, the pattern had resurfaced, more terrifying than ever. Even after the discovery of the clothes, the case of Michael and Laura remained as empty as the refrigerator they were found in. No bodies, no fingerprints, no trace of blood, just garments folded with eerie precision, as if mocking investigators who had waited 40 years for answers. For the families, the absence of truth was worse than any nightmare, because the silence left space for the imagination to wander into darker places. FBI agents admitted privately that the case was like chasing shadows. The clothes were proof of something sinister, yet without bodies or forensic evidence, the investigation felt like grasping smoke. Some officers speculated the couple might have been buried somewhere far away, their remains long erased by time. Others believed the evidence pointed to something stranger, that the clothes were never meant to be found until someone decided it was time. But by who? And why after 40 years? Locals grew restless again, the diner now turning from a decaying landmark into a magnet for fear. People drove by at night just to glimpse the boarded windows, claiming to see faint light leaking through cracks, as though the building itself was alive. Teenagers dared each other to approach the back door, but none stayed long. The silence inside the diner was suffocating, heavier than darkness, like stepping into a space that remembered every secret. Rumors took on a life of their own. Some said Charles Henley, the former owner, had been part of something larger, a network of people who preyed on couples across the state. Others whispered of rituals, pointing to the strange symbols carved into the basement walls as proof. And then there were those who swore the disappearances weren't human at all, that the lights seen in the woods back in 1984 were no coincidence. Whatever the theory, none could explain the simple, chilling fact Michael and Laura had vanished without a trace, and only their clothes had been left behind, as if to remind the world of what was taken. To this day, the refrigerator stands in an FBI evidence facility, sealed shut, its presence a constant reminder of the horror beneath that diner. Investigators still call it one of the most disturbing unsolved mysteries in Texas history. Not because of what was found, but because of what wasn't. The folded clothes may have been discovered, but the truth behind them remains locked in silence. And somewhere in that silence lies the answer no one has dared to uncover. And so, after 40 long years, the mystery of Michael and Laura remains unsolved. The diner has rotted away, its walls crumbling, its silence louder than ever. The folded clothes discovered in that basement refrigerator are the only proof they were ever there. Silent relics of a night that swallowed 2 lives whole. No bodies, no confession, no truth. Only fragments that hint at something far darker than anyone dares to admit. Was it the work of a man with secrets buried beneath his diner? Or was it something larger, something beyond comprehension, that claimed the couple and left their belongings behind like an echo of their existence? To this day, no one knows. And maybe no one ever will. But one thing is certain, if you ever find yourself on an empty highway in Texas, driving past an abandoned diner with boarded windows and a history too dark to speak aloud, keep driving. Because some doors, once opened, can never be closed again.
If you liked this video, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. Most importantly, subscribe and hit the bell icon so the next secret finds you first.